Israeli jet fighters bombed Yemen, killing at least 3 people. Good morning. Thank you for watching. I'm Shakil 5858. I am Amir Budnem. I am thankful to all international news resources and my team. Following are the news which have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian, Canadian channels and AP, AFP and Reuters news agencies. Now watch the channels. In retaliation of a Tel Aviv attack yesterday, Arab nations are improving relations with Syria. Immigrants take dangerous path to reach the United States, increasing Democrats against Biden while he is in isolation. Mr. Biden and his assistants holding a rally in Michigan. Airports, hospitals, government offices are still struggling to come up with proper working conditions, which were affected by global outage of technical glitch, rather due to technical glitch. Israeli attack on refugee camp in Gaza killed at least 13 people, according to Hamas news agency. Texas Congresswoman Sheila Jackson died. Focus on divorce by social conservatives. Paris Olympics. Now watch the channels.
Tonight on PBS News Weekend, why Middle East nations are taking steps to normalize relations with Syria. Then some conservative politicians take aim at no-fault divorce. And with a spotlight on border security this election year, we look at the dangerous path some migrants are taking to enter the United States.
If the current pushes you against that fence, that's a dangerous situation because you can't get off of it. So the fence is dangerous, the currents are dangerous, the surf can be dangerous.
PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm John Yang. President Biden remains in isolation tonight, and not just because he has COVID-19. The list of Democrats calling for him to get out of the race grew longer today as California Representative Mark Takano added his name. Mr. Biden and those speaking publicly for him insist he's in it to stay. In today's daily medical update, presidential physician Kevin O'Connor said Mr. Biden's symptoms continue to improve steadily. The president was at his Delaware beach house, while at the White House, a group calling on him to pass the torch held a rally. Meanwhile, the new Republican ticket of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance is holding a rally this evening in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's the first since the convention and Trump's first since the attempt on his life. Airports, hospitals, and offices are still trying to get systems fully online after yesterday's global tech outage. Microsoft put out new numbers saying that more than 8 million Windows devices were affected, or less than 1% of customers. But many big hub airports are in disarray for a second day. According to the tracking site FlightAware, there have been more than 1,600 canceled flights today, both foreign and domestic, and more than 4,000 flight delays. Israel said it carried out airstrikes in Yemen in response to Houthi attacks, including yesterday's deadly drone strike in Tel Aviv. Yemeni officials said Israeli fighter jets hit fuel storage facilities and a power station in the port city of Hodeidah, which is a Houthi stronghold. The Houthi spokesman called it blatant aggression. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said his nation has the right to defend itself.
The Houthis attacked us over 200 times. The first time they harmed an Israeli citizen, we struck them, and we will do this in any place where it may be required. The blood of Israeli citizens has a price.
Earlier in central Gaza, Israel struck refugee camps. Palestinian health officials said at least 13 people were killed, 3 of them children. And longtime Texas Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee has died. In the nearly 30 years she represented her Houston district, Lee played a key role in expanding the Violence Against Women Act to specifically address Native American, transgender, and immigrant women. She was also the lead sponsor of legislation making Juneteenth a national holiday. She said just last month that she'd been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Jackson Lee was 74 years old. Still to come on PBS News Weekend, why some social conservatives are now turning their focus to divorce and the life-threatening journey some migrants take to enter America.
This is
Nathalie Savarikas, one of the 200 France 24 correspondents around the world.
Welcome to Night Watch on France 24, and I'm Clarisse Fortuné. Up top stories at this hour. Israeli warplanes killed 3 people in Yemeni port of Hodeida after the deadly drone attack in Tel Aviv by the Houthis. White House contender Donald Trump holds his first rally in the battleground state of Michigan amidst tightened security a week after an attempt on his life. In France, climate activists and police clash in the western port of La Rochelle over the construction of massive irrigation reservoirs. In Yemen, 3 people were killed and more than 80 wounded in Israeli airstrikes near the port of Hodeida. These attacks follow a fatal drone attack by the Houthi rebel group in Tel Aviv the previous day. Charlotte Hughes has the latest.
A huge fire here in the Red Sea port city of Hodeida following Israeli airstrikes. According to the main TV news outlet run by Yemen's Houthi movement, the strikes targeted a power station and oil facilities, igniting a blaze and resulting in dozens of casualties and several fatalities. Residents were left shaken.
We were shocked and terrified by today's bombing. This Israeli attack has further depleted our fuel and essential supplies needed by the citizens and the people.
According to Israel's military spokesperson, the port was used by the Iranian-backed Houthis to receive weapons from Iran. The strikes come a day after a drone launched by the Houthis hit Tel Aviv, killing at least 1 person and injuring several others. The strikes on Yemen, Israel's defense minister said, aim to send a message to the group.
The fire that is currently burning in Hodeida is seen across the Middle East, and the significance is clear. The Houthis attacked us over 200 times. The first time that they harmed an Israeli citizen, we struck them. And we will do this in any place where it may be required.
Houthi officials have vowed retaliation. As the Israel-Hamas conflict rages on, the group, which has also targeted Western ships in the Red Sea, has ramped up attacks against Israel and Western targets, saying they're acting in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza.
And Israeli airstrikes also hit refugee camps in central Gaza, killing at least 13 people, including 3 children. These latest strikes come as U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says ceasefire talks are making progress in Cairo. Jenny Shin reports.
One funeral after another towards a peace deal.
And a key part for a potential ceasefire deal will be the release of Israeli hostages. This Saturday, like most Saturdays since October 7th, people took to the streets in Tel Aviv. They're urging Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu not to fly to the United States, where a hostage deal appears to be at hand. Netanyahu is scheduled to address a joint session of the American Congress on Wednesday. Over in the United States, Donald Trump held his first campaign rally since he narrowly escaped an attempt on his life last week. This time, the event was held at an indoor venue, allowing security officers to keep tabs on who entered and to prevent threats from the outside. It comes as an investigation into the security failures at the last week's rally is still in the works. Charlotte Hughes.
Able to shoot at the former president by climbing onto the roof of a nearby building.
Alike, as the country battles one of the worst costs of living in a generation. Clémence Valère explains.
Of negotiation On Thursday, the Nigerian president staff
activists and small farmers have been protesting against of massive irrigation reservoirs. Several police officers and testers are injured. Activists say that the reservoirs benefit a lot from
Police fired tear gas to disperse climatists. Unrest broke out in the port of La Rochelle in western France. The protesters are angry at agro-industry practices and the construction of mega water.
We're asking agro-industry to stop everything that goes against living.
Have rampaged a supermarket. It is hard to are under construction in western France.
As the Olympic Games fast approach, Ukraine has unveiled a new Olympic-themed postage stamp to support its athletes. Despite being the smallest national team and the ongoing invasion of Russia, the country remains defiant and determined. Story by Rachel Griffith.
With a stamp of approval, Ukraine has unveiled a new set of stamps to support its athletes at the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. 140 athletes will compete this year, the smallest number in the country's history, as Russia's invasion of Ukraine continues. For fencer Vlada Karkova, competing in the Games sends a clear message that Ukraine remains defiant.
We've spent countless hours without electricity, without water, in darkness, in cold and in heat. I think we've gone through everything. And I think these conditions made us stronger. And we are ready to show the whole world that despite everything, we are Ukrainians. And we are unbreakable as the Ukrainian nation.
And finally to the Tour de France, which is coming to an end. For the first time, the finish line won't be on the famous Parisian Champs-Élysées Avenue. Instead, the final stage will speed along the Corniche from Monaco to Nice. James Vassina gives us a preview on what to expect on this last day of the competition.
Well, it's the last of 21 stages as the Tour de France finishes here this Sunday in Nice, finishing in Nice for the first time ever, and for the first time, of course, outside of Paris, as normally the Tour de France ends on the Champs-Élysées, but owing to the Olympic Games, that is not possible this year. So the riders will be taking off from the east of here over in Monaco for an individual time trial, all their way to Nice to wrap things up in this edition. Now, this Sunday might be a chance for the likes of Remco Evenepoel to try and catch up a bit on those 3 minutes that he needs to be able to jump ahead of second place Jonas Vingegaard. That's a big feat that he does need to pull off. Tadej Pogačar, after winning yet another stage this Saturday, will be looking to keep that lead, that solid 5 minutes and 7 second leads. So if all goes to plan, well, this Sunday it's going to be a matter of all of those ahead in their respective categories of cashing in their winnings, if you like. Tadej Pogačar taking the Tour with the yellow jersey, Richard Carapaz being crowned king of the mountains, and Biniam Girmay taking the green jersey as the best sprinter from this edition. All of this happening then this Sunday then for a final race here on the southeastern coast, and an exceptional finish to that then for the first time outside of Paris.
Thank you for watching Night Watch. More news coming up on France 24. Stay with us.
The Central African Republic government has accused Portuguese-Belgian national Martin Joseph Figueira, of espionage on behalf of certain Western countries, including the United States. During a press conference at the presidential palace, President Akenja Tudera's advisor clarified the situation regarding the member of the American NGO FHI 360. We trust our country's justice system, and the elements they possess are so substantial that they could lead to the man's prosecution and subsequent trial. Figueira was arrested on May 25 in Zemio, Haute-Mumbu, and has been detained for 2 months. He is accused of financing terrorist groups, including Ali Darassa's Unity for Peace in Central Africa, conspiracy, espionage, and incitement to hatred. While the NGO Family Health International 360 denies the accusations, the government claims to have material and audio evidence incriminating him. Recently, he has started a hunger strike, which the prosecutor describes as a tactic to manipulate public opinion. The hunger strike is mentioned in the prosecutor's statement. We cannot ignore it. This tactic is always used by those accused in such situations. They claim to have health problems and so on. We know that this has always been the method these individuals used to manipulate public opinion. International organizations have called for his unconditional release, deeming the allegations unfounded. However, the government insists he will face justice in the coming days. Meanwhile, FHI 360 and his lawyer expressed concern about his detention conditions at the Doru military camp. If found guilty, Joseph Figueira faces life imprisonment. Mali's celebrated king of Kora, Tomani Diabate, passed away on Friday at the age of 58 following a brief illness, according to an announcement from his family on social media. Diabate, a renowned master of the kora, a traditional West African string instrument, died at a private hospital in Bamako, the capital of Mali. Born in 1965 into a family of griots, Diabate was deeply rooted in Mali's rich cultural heritage, serving as a guardian of the nation's oral histories and traditions. Throughout his career, Diabate was celebrated for his extraordinary skill and innovative approach to the kora. His ability to seamlessly blend traditional Malian music with contemporary influences earned him acclaim both in Africa and internationally. The news of his passing has led to a wave of tribute from across the West African music scene.
Saturday night, Western wildfires.
We're declaring a nationwide evacuation.
The massive blazes now threatening multiple communities in Western Canada.
There's a lot.
On this Saturday night, Western wildfires.
We're declaring a nationwide evacuation.
The massive blazes now threatening multiple communities in Western Canada.
There's a lot of nervousness, there's a lot of stress, a lot of people being on edge.
How the situation could escalate in the coming days. Immigration irritant.
The Americans are irritated, we better get on our horse and figure it out.
Why Washington isn't happy with Ottawa's new rules for Mexican travelers.
It doesn't really address the core of the problem.
Olympic politics. Will the Summer Games be overshadowed by global conflicts? Plus, rescued at sea.
The entire province is breathing a collective sigh of relief, an incredibly positive outcome.
7 fishermen missing for days in the Atlantic have an emotional homecoming.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Good evening.
The right to me, very similar.
And can we phase out for future generations?
The solutions are there, and we need to phase out of them as soon as we can.
7:30 this week, ABC and ABC iView.
Today, a man and a 2-year-old boy killed after a pram rolls onto train tracks in Sydney South. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump addresses thousands of supporters a week after an attempt on his life.
And they keep saying, he's a threat to democracy. I'm saying, what the hell did I do for democracy? Last week I took a bullet for democracy.
A plan for compensation. The federal government outlines how it will help families of those unlawfully killed by Australians in Afghanistan. And the number of computers affected by Friday's global IT outage estimated at more than 8.5 million. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Ruby Cornish. In breaking news this hour, a man and a child have died at a train station in Sydney's south.
This is Asia Now.
It's 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 in New Delhi and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. Good afternoon. I'm Rani Samtani. At this hour, Bangladesh's top court will rule today on whether to abolish a government job quota as a curfew is lifted this hour. The death toll from protests over the contentious issue has topped 100. More than 24 vehicles reportedly plunged into a river in China after heavy downpours caused a bridge to collapse. 12 people have died as rescuers search for dozens more still missing. And in the U.S., Donald Trump says he took a bullet for democracy at his first campaign rally since he survived an assassination attempt, while Joe Biden vows to run as more Democrats ask him to drop out of the presidential race.
Beijing. This is Global Watch.
Hello and a very warm welcome to all of our viewers from around the globe. I'm Philip Hampshire.
And I'm Duning. You're watching Global Watch on CGTN. First of all, today's headlines. High-quality development underscores China's crucial reforms and its goal of becoming a great modern socialist country by 2050.
Israel strikes Yemen's Haditha port, killing 3 people and wounding dozens in retaliation for a Houthi attack on Tel Aviv.
Tension simmers in Bangladesh with soldiers on patrol and a weekend curfew following deadly student-led protests.
Preparations are going very well.
The stage is set. International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach hails preparations for Paris 2024.
All right, we start with our special coverage on China's drive to...
Hello, a very good morning. It's 6 o'clock. Coming up on today's show, Hezbollah says it's fired dozens of retaliatory rockets into northern Israel, the latest in an exchange of almost 5,000 strikes since October.
Plus, the biggest teaching union warns workers will strike if the government ignores recommendations for above-inflation pay rises.
And it's the American Billy Horschel who leads going into the final round of the Open, but the list of potential winners runs well into double figures at Royal Troon.
It's Sunday, the 21st of July. An uptick of cross-border attacks between Israel's military and Hezbollah stoke fears of wide...
This is DW News live from Berlin. Israel bombs several sites in Yemen linked to Houthi rebels. Yemeni media say the strikes kill at least 3 people. It follows deadly Houthi drone attacks on Tel Aviv on Friday. Also coming up, Donald Trump holds his first campaign rally since surviving an assassination attempt, joining forces on the campaign trail with new running mate J.D. Vance. I'm Ul Al-Zaka. Welcome to the program. Israel says its fighter jets have struck several Houthi military...
This is NBC Nightly News with Jose Diaz-Balart.
Good evening. Moments ago, former President Trump and Senator J.D. Vance took the stage at a campaign rally together for the first time as running mates. That by itself is a major milestone in any presidential campaign. But tonight's rally comes 1 week to the day, practically the hour, after that failed assassination attempt on Mr. Trump. There was a massive security presence there tonight, and we are learning more about the security lapses 1 week ago, including that the shooter flew a drone over the rally site just hours before he carried out the shooting. While the Trump-Vance ticket made their campaign trail debut, President Biden remains at his Delaware Beach home battling not only COVID, but the growing chorus of Democrats calling for him to drop out of the race. We're going to cover all of it tonight. And we begin with Von Hilliard at that Trump rally in Michigan.
Tonight, ripple effects, new chaos and frustration after a software security update cripples computers worldwide.
I'm frustrated. I'm really frustrated.
Airports back online, but still struggling after the tech meltdown. New delays and cancellations for passengers, luggage piling up. Is there a fast fix?
I'm Elise Preston in Los Angeles, where passengers fear this chaos could happen again.
Also tonight, digging in. President Biden, fighting COVID, vows to return to campaigning, even as more Democrats today urge him to drop out.
Hey, ho, ho! Thank you, Joe. It's time to go.
While Donald Trump and J.D. Vance hit the trail in Michigan for their first rally.
I'm Caitlin Huey-Burns in Grand Rapids, where security is tight and people have been lined up for hours to see the former president.
Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, remembered tonight as a fierce champion of people. Israel strikes back after a deadly Houthi rebel attack on Tel Aviv. Plus, the U.S. Navy exonerates 258 black sailors unjustly punished after a deadly World War II blast. Why families say it was long overdue. And later, in our Weekend Journal, we meet Tiki, chatting up customers on the morning coffee run.
Tonight, several developing stories as we come on the air. Former President Trump returns to the campaign trail with his new running mate 1 week after the attempt on his life. President Biden facing off with his own party over his future in the race, and tensions rising overseas as Israel launches airstrikes in Yemen. First, Trump with his new running mate J.D. Vance taking the stage in Michigan, the key battleground state. The two campaigning together for the first time since Vance joined the ticket. And tonight, new developments in the investigation into that assassination attempt. Authorities looking at whether the suspect used a drone prior to the event where he opened fire. Our team reporting from tonight's rally in Michigan. President Biden's doctor today saying his COVID symptoms continue to improve ahead of his promised return to the campaign trail next week. His aides huddling behind the scenes as pressure mounts on Biden to drop out of the race. But not everyone is on board. What we're learning about two powerful voices inside the Democratic Party and their support for the president. Selena Wang with late reporting. The aftershocks reverberate from the global cyber meltdown. Travelers still facing thousands of delays and cancellations as airlines and companies struggle to get back to normal. Breaking overseas, Israeli jets strike Houthi targets in Yemen 1 day after a drone strike in Tel Aviv. And what Secretary of State Blinken is now saying about the latest ceasefire talks. Fires and floods. The record heat in the West intensifies, fueling new brush fires and evacuations in California as severe weather and a flood threat expands east. The urgent manhunt for a suspect accused of gunning down a beloved postal worker in Chicago. Tonight, new details in the investigation. Tensions escalate in Bangladesh after violent clashes have already claimed more than 100 lives. Dramatic video. 7 officers hurt when a high-speed chase ends in a multi-vehicle crash. Tributes pouring in for longtime Texas Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. And America Strong tonight, the amazing Corgi, whose command of sign language is inspiring millions.
Griff, for more on this, we're joined now by Trump 2024 campaign National Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. Caroline, good to see you. We appreciate you being here on this Saturday. So, first of all, really none of us can say that we know who is going to be at the top of the ticket on the side of the Democrats. So how do you strategize with that?
Well, the Democrats are certainly in disarray. There is no doubt about it. We are witnessing a silent coup against Joe Biden by members of his own party. Democrats across the political aisle on Capitol Hill are now coming out and saying that Joe Biden is not competent enough to run this campaign. So if he's not competent enough to campaign, then how is he competent enough to be commander-in-chief for another several months, even ahead of the election in November? That's a question we should be asking the Democrats. The American people see Joe Biden is unfit to serve as commander-in-chief. As for our campaign, it doesn't matter who's at the top of the ticket because it's Joe Biden and the Democrat Party who have embraced the disastrous policies that have hurt American families over the last 4 years, the wide open border invasion, the wars around this world, and of course the record high inflation that's robbing working class families in states like Michigan, where President Trump and Senator J.D. Vance will be campaigning in their first big rally together today.
Yeah, and we will be covering that. You know, Caroline, Democrat.
Summertime is often the perfect time to hit the beach, but in some spots, conditions have been unsafe for swimming. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth has more on the water worries.
Steamy weather has led to beach closures coast to coast. This water quality researcher says heat and humidity attracts more humans and animals to cool off, which can increase fecal bacteria levels in water.
These bacteria can, of course, multiply, replicate, and increase their number, causing, unfortunately, beach closures.
6 Halifax area beaches are off limits. Water quality issues have closed numerous beaches in Western Canada this summer. 6 Toronto beaches were also shut down after flooding. When sewer systems backed up, bacteria-laden floodwaters poured into nearby lakes and streams.
Many Canadians saw images of the Don Valley Parkway, and you can imagine that the Don Valley Parkway, as a long piece of asphalt, can only retain water and as opposed to absorbing it.
This area, Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, is known as the City of Lakes, with more than 20 lakes in a very small geographic area. That means bacteria in the water is a major issue that impacts a lot of people. Would-be swimmers are warned fecal bacteria can cause numerous infections and gastrointestinal sickness.
If you swim in water that's, for example, at one of our beaches that is closed right now, where there's an advisory, you're just putting yourself at more risk.
Robin Isaac is not overly alarmed.
I'm comfortable swimming here. I have a shower when I come out, but I wouldn't put children in and I wouldn't put dogs in.
Graham Gagnon says prolonged rainfall and cooler weather will eventually lead to lower fecal bacteria levels in lakes, followed by the reopening of beaches. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News.
Well, let's talk a little bit about you becoming a Truth and Reconciliation Commissioner. I thought that you and the others had been appointed to these roles, so I was surprised to learn that there was a huge selection committee.
It's funny, people say, well, how did you get to be a commissioner? I said, well, I applied for the job, This part of the country in the north, where the highest per capita number of residential school survivors of anywhere in the country live, I know something about that multi-generational impact. I tried really hard to bring my personal experience on a very personal level forward as a valuable asset. And what I mean by that is we had gone through struggles in our personal family, and we had turned that around. I firmly believed that if that is possible within a family, surely it's possible within a country. And in the end, what can I say? I was the lucky one who got chosen. It just felt like such an honor, but it also felt so important. And I really wanted to do it well, and I wanted us to get it right, and I wanted us to do something that could never be forgotten or dismissed.
Why write this book now?
I believe strongly that this was a turning point in Canadian history.
I really was alone, lonely, scared.
I thought sharing what I know, sharing what I have experienced, sharing the first-hand account of what happened in all those rooms as we went about our work, that is a valuable contribution to set down and to offer up and eventually to leave behind. When I can't tell that story firsthand, almost without exception, when survivors spoke to us, the thing that they focused on as being the most devastating, and I was fully prepared for that to be a story about sexual abuse, it actually wasn't. It was the moment of rupture from home.
Thank you for watching and privilege of your time. This is Amir Shakil 5858. I am Amir Goodman. Have a good life.